We work hard as physicians to take care of the health and well-being of our patients. But when it comes to our money, do we have the same condition of care? Probably not. Let's change that together. Welcome to the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast, where we'll fight and advocate for your financial literacy. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. Thanks for being here. Let's jump into the show. Before we begin today's episode, let's hear from this week's sponsor. Vive Funds is a commercial multifamily real estate firm trusted by physician investors, physician families, and busy entrepreneurs from all over the United States. Located in Dallas, Texas, and founded by Veena Jetty, Vive Funds specializes in curating conservative passive real estate investment opportunities for investors. Veena brings a dynamic perspective to targeting, acquiring, managing, and operating investment assets using the best time-tested practices combined with cutting-edge technologies. If you're interested, reach out to Veena and her team at Vive Funds to find out how you can be a successful investor too by creating opportunities for you to build your portfolio. You can find them at drpodcastnetwork.com/Vive Funds. That's spelled VIVEFUNDS. Again, that's drpodcastnetwork.com/Vive Funds. Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode for the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. And each week we bring on guests who are experts in the 4 types of freedom that we emphasize. First is time, finances, location, as well as emotional freedom. And today we have a very special guest, Dr. Yashoda Bhaskar, who has encompassed all of these types of freedoms. So we're going to get into a great conversation, and I'm going to bring up her bio. So Dr. Yashoda Bhaskar is a double board certified physician in internal medicine and lifestyle medicine. She graduated from medical school in India and moved to the US after she got married more than 30 years ago. She then completed her residency at Texas Tech University and subsequently worked as a hospitalist for 16 years in the Pacific Northwest. She then moved to Hawaii with her husband in 2018, taking up a job at a skilled nursing facility, and then retired 1 year later and traveled through India for 3 months. So time, location, financial freedom. On her return, the COVID-19 pandemic broke out, and she decided to go back to work to serve patients as a telehealth physician. She is currently doing a lot of great work. She's doing an ICF Certified Life Transformational Coach and Certified Money Mindset Coach. She helps women medical professionals who have unique struggles in medicine around burnout, sexism, and discrimination through her powerful coaching methods. Her philosophy is that financial freedom is key to developing control of one's professional and personal life, giving physicians choice to create a work-life balance that works. The tools she employs as a money coach bring clarity to the taboo conversation around money and take her clients from financially innocent to financially savvy so that they can feel free to design a life of their own choosing. She also happens to be a certified vipassana meditation teacher. In her meager spare time, she loves to read by the beach, go for long walks, and listen to motivating and empowering podcasts and audiobooks. She also enjoys yoga and Zumba. So without much ado, Dr. Yashoda Bhaskar, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Liu. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me on your show. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's really wonderful. I know you had me on your podcast, and I see you've done you retired early, you got financially independent, and now you're spreading the word and impacting people in different ways. So tell us all about how you got started, your journey, and how you decided to branch out into doing the awesome work that you're doing today.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, so a little bit more in that's not in my bio is that like I said, I went to medical school in India, and I was very fortunate and lucky. And I guess I didn't realize then how lucky I was that I got a full ride scholarship. So I literally paid nothing for my medical education. My parents had to pay for room and board
Uh-huh.
in the dorm that I lived, but there was no tuition. And looking back now, I'm just like, wow, like what a gift, right? To come out of that, especially when I hear about my clients and the amount of student loans that they have, and that's such a big burden to even just get started. And so yeah, so that was a big part of my education. I didn't really learn about money, kind of the same thing. I think most of us are really not taught much about money. Um, and it's kind of blissful, came here, there was lots of moving parts. And when I was actually working as a hospitalist, I was the primary breadwinner. My husband actually stayed at home for a few years and took care of our children, and circumstances dictated that. And then he went back to work as an associate, or sorry, adjunct professor. So he wasn't really making a lot of money. And the one point of contention in our marriage was always around money. Like I was the spender, he was the saver, right? And even like to me, sometimes it felt like it was too controlling. And now I realize it's because he was just trying to make sure I wasn't being wasteful. But as a typical gal, I love fun stuff like purses and clothes and jewelry, and I just felt like every time I would make a purchase and bring it home, there would be sort of this raised eyebrows, like you already have so many clothes, you already have so many shoes, right? And I realized what happened over time is I just got tired of that nitpicking, and I sort of blocked it out. I blocked money out of my subconscious. And it's not that he was controlling me, it just like felt unpleasant. So I kind of cut down my spending and go to work, come home, and I get my massages and my pedicures because those were things that I enjoy doing. I'd go to the gym, so nothing unreasonable or anything like that. And we used to take some amazing vacations, lots of road trips with the kids. So I don't feel like we really missed out much. But what that actually ended up happening is we ended up saving a ton, right? Because if you don't spend and you make good money, and as a hospitalist, I was one of those people who was very happy with how much money I was making, maxed out our 401ks and our IRAs and all of that. And we didn't know too much about investing in the beginning, but over time, and we have a friend who's a chartered accountant, and she would like help us, invest and stuff like that. So anyway, what happened was I started going through burnout at work, but I had no idea about how much money you need to like walk away from a job, not necessarily retire, but buy that freedom, right? I had no clue. I mean, absolutely no clue. It sounds crazy saying that now, but that really was me. I was just like shut off from the whole money conversation, if you will. And so I just kept working, feeling trapped, just feeling like there's no way out. Um, and then we actually went to a financial advisor in Seattle. And I remember, Chris, this so clearly. It was through my husband's work. You know how they're like, oh, go, you get a complimentary session. So we go there. This guy's got this fancy office, right? Like it's beautiful. He's very nice. And he talks to us and he looks at all our money, all our information. And he looks at us and he says, so what do you want? What do you want? Like, what is your retirement plan? And I said, I sort of half jokingly, I said, oh, I'll retire today if I could, right? And he literally looked at me and said, you can. And I burst out laughing because I thought he was joking, right? Like I must have been like maybe 48, 49, something like that. Like
Uh-huh.
nobody has money to retire. And he's like, no, you guys have done really well. You've been smart. We weren't really smart. We were just saving a ton of money. And yes, you can. And I couldn't believe him. I walked out of there shocked. I'm like, how can I be such a smart human being and not know anything about money? And this financial advice is telling me, but I couldn't believe, like in my soul, I couldn't believe it. So it took me 3 or 4 years to start. And I was like determined. I'm like, I got to learn about this money stuff. This is crazy. So I started reading about financial, independence, the FIRE movement, Mr. Money Mustache, you name it, right? I just like gorged on all those podcasts. And then my husband was ready and willing to turn over like managing the finances to me. It's like, I've been asking you for years, right? So at some level, we started having those conversations around money. I started paying off the credit card bills, started helping him out. And finally I realized this is true. I really, we don't have, millions and millions of dollars, but looking at how much we spend and looking at how much we'd saved and how we'd invested, I was able to plot it out and realize that yes, yes, we were at the point that we could retire. So that's what we did, right? At the end of the day, then I was like, I'm done. I can't practice medicine the way it is anymore, all the administrative hassles. And yeah, and then, the rest of the story, as you said, we moved to Hawaii and here we are. So sorry, that was a little long-winded, but I kind of wanted to give your audience, some context of how I arrived at this situation. Yeah.
That's a wonderful story. And so you were 48, 49, you're able to gain your freedom and your independence, and so tell me a little bit. What are some of the top things that people right now that are thinking about financial independence or early retirement? What can they start to do? Either you mentioned the savings rate and or any books or podcasts to that they can start learning from.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chris, one of the things for me is to keep it simple. I'm not even though I went into internal medicine, which I think is just the universe's way of laughing at me, I tend to keep things very simple. Even when I would explain things to my patients, I would be very careful to use layman terms and not use big medical terms. And I know that there is a lot of interest in side gigs and passive income through real estate and like this, all of this stuff going on, right? So what some of the things I would say is first and foremost, even the day you take out your first student loan, let's say to go to medical school, right? Be very mindful of how much I'm not against taking out loans. Like a lot of people couldn't get to where they are today if they didn't, if they weren't in debt. I think it's absolutely essential. And I'm glad they have that opportunity to do that, right? Mm-hmm. But you have to be really mindful because, when you're going into medical school, the banks, they're more than happy to just give you as much money as you want, right? You're a good risk to them. So I think it behooves you to really start being careful about how much you're borrowing right then, even though the interest rates might seem low and this, student loan forgiveness and all of this. At the end of the day, you're borrowing money. You're borrowing money in order for you to do something, in order for you to make more money, right? So the less you borrow, the sooner you can pay it off, the faster you're going to be financially independent from that. So that would be, step number one. Step number two is really start becoming aware of money, tracking your expenses. It doesn't have to be fancy. Honestly, the way I do it is literally every night, if we've gone to Costco, for example, I mean, now, your credit card will give you, right, the breakdown of your expenses. But I just like to keep a little log, and to just jot down there. We spent $150 at Costco yesterday. I just write it down, So all your expenses, maybe not daily, maybe once a week, whatever works for you, or there's tons of apps, you and I know that, right? YNAB and Mint and whatever. But I think tracking expenses is important because how else will you know where you're at, right? It's like keeping a food journal, and then learn about like smart investing, learn about 401ks, IRAs. It can seem somewhat complicated, but we're smart. We're doctors. It just requires us to sit down and really, figure things out, right? And then, yeah, if you're really interested in how to be financially dependent, again, I want to be very clear. It doesn't mean you have to retire early, right? Some people have this, well, I don't really want to retire, which is fine. But if you gain financial independence, it just gives you more freedom and flexibility and sovereignty. And it's one less thing that your employer can hold over your head, right? Like it's powerful, and then, yeah, podcast. I really like Mr. Money Mustache. I think it's very sort of like, here it is, cut and dry, bam, bam, bam. And then, the book that I bought a copy for each of my sons was The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. Yes, it is boring. It is about investing in low-cost index funds. That's where all my money is. My money is with Vanguard. It doesn't sound sexy at all. the thing is, we didn't pull out in 2007, 2008, right? Well, one is because I was totally ignorant and I wasn't even watching my money, to be honest with you, which turned out to be a good thing in the long run, right? Because we just left the money in there. But even today, like, all my, and then making sure that you have, an emergency fund, right? 3 to 6 months is what's recommended. I think that's if you're working. Because we're not working, we actually have cash reserve for like 2 years because I know how much expense I need. And if the stock market crashes, I don't want to be selling my shares, So my comfort level, 2 years, I'm happy because I know, like, a house is paid off, our cars are paid off, I have no debt. So, and enjoy your life. The thing is, people think you have to be frugal and crazy and, make all these horrible sacrifices. And we start in a very good place being physicians, right? We make way more than average, what the average American makes. And so we really have more ability to enjoy our life, but also be, smart about it. Yeah. So I could say a lot more, but I'll stop there.
You mentioned so many great pearls, so many great resources. So I'll be sure to include those in the show notes. And I really like the idea of tracking, daily tracking. So yeah, I have I track every day income and expenses, and make sure it's within line. So if you can't measure it, you can't track it. So
Exactly.
yeah, so that's one.
Yeah.
And then now so what made you you're pretty much set for the your entire your family and your husband for your financially, and what made you decide to launch podcasts and go into coaching and get certification and help others, and I think the audience needs to hear that it's not a retirement, it's not a end thing. It's always constantly evolving, and you have to have your passions to keep you going. So
Yeah, well, my family calls me crazy. My family definitely thinks I'm crazy. Chris, I've actually given a lot of thought to this, right? And the reality of it is, I don't know which came first, if it's just services in my DNA or it was instilled in me as a child growing up and saying, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to help people. But the thought of like sitting around doing nothing and not in some way being productive and helping others drives me crazy. I wouldn't even know what to do. And what I realized is, especially with the money coaching, is that especially women, a lot of us turn our power over. It's what I call the Prince Charming syndrome, right? Like even as growing up, I mean, I've heard these things where I've had friends who said, oh, my parents say just find a rich guy and get married, right? Like don't worry about going to college or going to school or whatever. Or even in my case, I was more than happy to turn it over. I'm like, oh, my husband's taking care of everything. I shouldn't even think about it. And thank God I could trust the man. We've heard of horrible stories where, divorces happen, or somebody's bank account gets emptied by their spouse and they didn't even know it, or office managers ripping off physicians. I think as physicians, we tend to be fairly trusting, right? Because we have that integrity, we have that moral compass that we hold ourselves to. So in a way, we believe that the rest of the world is like us. So, so we can be victims of fraud and stuff. I've definitely heard a lot of stories like that from some of my clients. So the reason I really step back is because I really, really, really believe that, especially as women, it's like cooking. This is what I tell people, right? My sons know how to cook. Now, are they great cooks? No. But in India, they would have been like, kick them out of the kitchen, right? The kitchen is the domain of the women. I really believe everybody should have basic skills, basic cooking skills, basic money management skills, right? Basic skills of how much sleep do we need? What is healthy eating? I call financial wellness the seventh pillar of lifestyle medicine, and we don't talk about it. So, and money, money touches every aspect of our life, right? Or I think I've mentioned this before, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs: food, clothing, shelter. Well, for all the three things, you need money, right? So I think it's, and we work so hard for it. Like, why would we give it away, squander it away? I have clients who are like 68 years old and they're like, I don't even know if I can retire. and they want to retire. They're like, I never thought I'd be working till the day I died, but I wasn't thinking about it or I wasn't paying attention to it, right?
Mhm.
So that's where my need to serve and come and just really create that awareness among people and say, please, you work so hard for your money, take care of it. Take care of it because it's going to help you in the long run, when you really need it.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, I can't sit around doing nothing.
No,
Yeah.
you touched on a point where it's once you're serving in a different way and you're serving in a greater capacity. So and you're using your education and your brand and your trust and authority as a doctor to help other people. So
Yeah,
that's
beautifully said. Thank you. You said it better than me, Chris. Thank you. I should just hire you to be my spokesperson. How about that?
well,
Yeah.
this was a wonderful conversation about financial freedom, and you live in Hawaii and you're able to do what you want to do. You have so much positive emotional energy. So if yeah, I know clients will want to reach out to you, how will they be able to contact you and reach out to you?
Yeah. So they can go to my website. It's just my name, YashodaBhaskarMD.com. I might change it down the road because it's a mouthful, but it's that's how they can reach me. They can book a call. I do free discovery calls. I do offer a number of different services. So I offer the money coaching itself, which is a 12-week program where we really look at money behaviors, money mindset, how did people come, I'm the whole diagnostic and then treat, right? So we first make the diagnosis of how and why people got to where they are around money, and then we create a treatment plan on how to improve it, if you will. So do that one-on-one, and I also do with them as group coaching. I call them money healing circles because really there has to be a lot of healing. There's a lot of trauma sometimes in people around that, and the groups, I think I'm going to be only offering like 3 times a year, so there's actually a wait list that people can join. I also offer general life coaching around burnout, work-life balance, career transition, retirement, all of that, because I am an ICF certified coach, and I have more than 170 hours of coaching, so I've just applied for my ACC certification as well. So, and I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, all under Yashoda Bhaskar. So I'm easy to find.
That's so awesome. So we'll be able to, for the listeners, we'll put all the resources and show notes in the links. So Yashoda, Dr. Bhaskar, any parting final words for the audience before we call it a day?
Yeah, there is a freebie on my website that I encourage people to take. It's kind of like a diagnostic tool. It's called the Money Archetype Quiz. It's a free quiz, and they get the results, and it'll actually tell them, it'll give them the results of what it means, and then they can book a call. But in terms of really, the nitty gritty is start early. You don't want to get to your late 50s or 60s and realize that you haven't paid attention to money because of the power of compounding, right? And the power of letting money grow for you rather than you working for money. You want your money to work for you. So the sooner you get started, the better. And there's lots of resources like you, Dr. Chris, and me, and we're more than happy to help. And thank you so much for having me on your show. I really enjoyed it.
It was a great conversation, and we'll be sure to have you back for future episodes.
I would love that. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
What a great show. Before we end, just a quick reminder about our sponsor, Vive Funds. That's spelled VIVE. Vive Funds provides unique passive multifamily investment opportunities that they vet and bring to you as an investor. Reach out to Veena Jetty to see how partnering with Vive can help you reach your real estate investment goals at drpodcastnetwork.com/Vive Funds. Again, Vive is spelled VIVE. Well, I hope you enjoyed that show, and we'll see you next week. I'm excited that you made it for another episode. You are truly the best. If you've been following the show for a while, you know that my passion is to bring you the education you need to find your path to financial freedom. Please come back week after week for new content, new resources, and great guests. Until then, if you haven't already, please be sure to check out the website www.drchrislumdphd.com for more support. I'll see you next week.